Imagine a machine with a mind of its own, a machine that could answer any question you ask, not by speaking, but by dipping a pen in ink and writing you a letter in perfect cursive. Imagine it could look at you and then, with a mechanical hand, draw your portrait with stunning accuracy. Now, picture these machines not in a modern laboratory, but in a dusty Paris workshop in the 1800s, running on nothing but springs, gears, and pure genius. This was an age of gaslight and horse-drawn carriages, long before the first computer was ever dreamed of. The man who built these impossible creations was Jean-Eugène Robert-Houdin. He was the master inventor who inspired America's own Harry Houdini, the father of modern magic. But Robert-Houdin's true magic wasn't just illusion, it was real. He built the world's first androids, priceless treasures celebrated across Europe. Then, after his death, his most advanced, most lifelike creations vanished without a trace. This isn't just a story of lost art, it's a mystery about stolen secrets and a technology that disappeared from history. To understand this mystery, you must first understand the man at its center. And his story does not begin on a stage, but here, in the quiet focus of a workshop. His name was Jean-Eugène Robert-Houdin. And before he was a magician, he was a master of time itself. Born in the heart of France, he was trained as a watchmaker, a profession that required the mind of an engineer and the steady hands of a surgeon. He spent his youth not learning to deceive the eye, but to master the laws of physics. He learned the secrets hidden in the patient ticking of a clock, the perfect tension of a spring, the mathematical dance of 100 tiny interlocking gears. This knowledge of mechanics, of precision and illusion built from science, would become the secret weapon that allowed him to change the world of mag, forever. Before Robert-Houdin, magic was a crude business. Magicians were seen as street performers, strange figures in mystical robes who performed tricks at loud fairs and in the shadowy corners of towns. Their magic was chaotic and often associated with the dark arts or low-class trickery. Robert-Houdin saw a different path. He believed magic could be an art form as respectable and sophisticated as ballet or opera. He stepped onto the stage not in a strange costume, but in the formal evening wear of a French gentleman. His theatre in Paris wasn't a circus tent. It was designed to look like a luxurious drawing room for the city's elite. He single-handedly transformed the magician from a mysterious trickster into a brilliant artist and scientist. He didn't claim to have supernatural powers. Instead, he presented his magic as a series of delightful, scientific puzzles. He was charming, intelligent, and his performances became the most sought-after ticket in all of Paris. Kings, queens, and emperors came to his theatre to be deceived by the master. His illusions were unlike anything the world had ever seen. In one famous trick, called the ethereal suspension, he would bring his own son onto the stage, lift him into the air, and leave him floating in mid-air, supported only by a thin cane resting under his elbow. The audience would gasp. But then Robert-Houdin would do the impossible. He would remove the cane, leaving the boy floating in space with no support at all, defying gravity itself. His most beloved creation was the marvelous orange tree. He would borrow a handkerchief from a lady in the audience, make it vanish, and then bring out a small, lifeless orange tree. Before the audience's very eyes, the tree would sprout leaves, then blossom with flowers. Then real oranges would begin to grow on its branches. He would pick an orange, open it, and from inside would fly 2 clockwork butterflies, their wings fluttering. And inside that same orange would be the lady's missing handkerchief. It was beautiful, impossible, and a hint of what was to come. Magic created not just by sleight of hand, but by hidden mechanical genius. His fame was so immense that it crossed the Atlantic Ocean and inspired a young, ambitious American performer named Eric Weiss. The young man was so obsessed with Robert-Houdin's autobiography, which revealed the science behind the magic, that he decided to honor his hero in the biggest way possible. He took the name Houdin, added an I at the end to mean like Houdin, and reinvented himself as Harry Houdini. America's greatest escape artist owed his very name to the French master. Robert-Houdin's genius didn't just dominate his own time, it created the legends of the future. He fooled emperors, he inspired Houdini, he changed entertainment forever. The world thought it knew all of his secrets. But for all his public illusions and celebrated tricks, Robert-Houdin's greatest, most revolutionary work was forged in secret, away from the applause of the crowd. It was work that blurred the line between machine and man, between science and magic. While Robert-Houdin's fame was won under the bright lights of the Parisian stage, his true genius was born here, in the quiet solitude of his personal workshop. This was his secret sanctuary, a laboratory of miracles hidden away from the world. It was a place where the laws of physics were not just obeyed, but bent and twisted into new, impossible shapes. The air here didn't smell of stage smoke, but of metal, machine oil, and sawdust. Tools lay on workbenches with surgical precision. This was not the lair of a mystic. It was the headquarters of a brilliant engineer who had dedicated his life to creating artificial life. Here, with his watchmaker's tools, he forged his greatest secrets, not from spells, but from steel, brass, and clockwork. He was building machines that could think. He was building his automata. Imagine being an honored guest, invited into this secret space. He presents to you his first marvel, the writer. It is a small, elegant figure of a boy sitting at a wooden desk, holding a feather pen. Robert-Houdin asks you to think of a question, any question, and whisper it into the boy's ear. You ask about the future. The automaton remains motionless for a moment. Then, with a soft whirring of gears, its head turns. Its mechanical arm gracefully lifts, dips the pen into a tiny inkwell, and with fluid, perfect motions, it begins to write. Not just random scribbles, but a coherent, poetic answer to the very question you just asked. It felt like telepathy. It felt like a machine that could read your soul. To the people of the 1800s, this was not just a trick. It was a terrifying and beautiful glimpse into a future no one could have imagined. But Robert-Houdin's ambitions didn't stop at writing. He wanted his creations to be artists. He revealed his next automaton, the drawer. This machine, upon request, could produce several different intricate drawings. One moment, it would sketch a perfect portrait of the king. The next, a detailed ship sailing on a stormy sea. The precision was breathtaking. The lines were flawless, the shading complex. It was a masterpiece of engineering, capable of producing real art. The genius wasn't just in the drawing itself, but in the memory, the ability of the machine to store multiple complex images and reproduce them perfectly on command. It was a mechanical mind, an artist forged from metal. To prove his creations could also bring joy and delight, he created the pastry chef of the Palais Royal. A guest would be asked to name any type of sweet or pastry they desired. The tiny chef automaton would bustle about, open its miniature oven door, and pull out the exact treat requested, presenting it fresh and ready to eat. Of course, this was a masterful illusion, combining mechanics with classic misdirection. But it was so seamless, so charming, that the audience was left convinced they had witnessed a tiny clockwork miracle worker. As you watch these marvels, you must force yourself to remember the world they were born into. Forget everything you know about modern technology. Forget silicon chips, forget computer code, forget electricity itself. These machines were not plugged into a wall. They had no batteries, no circuits, no wires. They were brought to life by a silent symphony of clockwork. Hundreds of exquisitely crafted gears, levers, wheels, and springs, all wound by hand, working in perfect mathematical harmony to create the illusion of life. Each automaton was a unique, handcrafted masterpiece, the result of thousands of hours of painstaking work. They were the absolute peak of mechanical art and science. These incredible machines were more than just magic tricks. They were priceless treasures of human ingenuity, far ahead of their time. They were proof that a man, with nothing but his mind and his hands, could breathe a mechanical soul into brass and steel. They were celebrated across Europe, admired by royalty, and studied by scientists. They were Robert-Houdin's legacy, meant to be preserved forever. Every great show must have a final curtain call. In 1871, Jean-Eugène Robert-Houdin, the master magician who had charmed Europe and inspired a generation of performers, passed away. He died a national hero in France, celebrated as a genius and an artist. But he left behind more than just a legendary name. He left a physical legacy, a treasure trove of his life's work. The intricate props from his illusions, the secrets to his magic, and most importantly, his incredible, one-of-a-kind automata. These were not just machines, they were his children, born from his mind and built by his hands. The responsibility of protecting this priceless collection now fell to his widow and his children. They were the guardians of a national treasure, the keepers of his mechanical soul. In the years following his death, the world of magic began to change. His grand theatre on the Boulevard des Italiens in Paris, once the epicenter of modern magic, was eventually sold. The curtain had fallen for the last time. With the automata no longer having a home stage, a plan was put into motion. The French government, recognizing the immense historical and scientific value of Robert-Houdin's work, intended to acquire the entire collection. The goal was to preserve it and display it in a prestigious national museum where future generations could marvel at his genius. The automata were destined for immortality. But in the chaotic aftermath of a great man's death, things can get lost. In the shuffle of history, treasures can vanish. The collection had to be moved from the theatre and from Robert-Houdin's personal workshop. It was a massive undertaking. Dozens of delicate, complex items had to be catalogued, carefully packed into wooden crates, and moved into temporary storage while the final arrangements for the museum were made. It was during this confusing transition period in a jumble of paperwork, changing ownership, and dusty storage rooms that the magic began to unravel. It would be years before anyone realized the true extent of what had been lost. Imagine the scene, years later. An official from a Parisian museum is tasked with finally taking a complete inventory of the legendary collection. He stands in a vast, quiet storage room, surrounded by crates bearing the name Robert-Houdin. He begins his work, ticking items off the long list. The marvelous orange tree. It's here. The apparatus for the ethereal suspension, present. One by one, the famous illusions are accounted for. He then gets to the most anticipated section of the list, the automata, the crown jewels of the collection. He reads the first entry, the pastry chef of the Palais Royal. He looks around and spots the charming small figure. He puts a check mark next to its name, a smile of satisfaction. Then he reads the next entry, the writer. He looks up from his clipboard, scanning the room for the elegant figure of the boy at his desk. He walks through the aisles, peering into open crates. It's not there. A flicker of confusion crosses his face. He continues down the list. The drawer, also missing. He frantically searches for the others, the most complex, the most celebrated of Robert-Houdin's mechanical marvels. They are all gone, vanished. The most important pieces of the collection were simply not there. This was no ordinary disappearance. As investigators pieced together what happened, a strange and disturbing pattern emerged. This was not a random robbery. A common thief would have stolen items made of gold or silver, things that were small and easy to sell. But those items were left untouched. The simpler automata, the less complex magic tricks, many of them were still there. The thief, or thieves, had been incredibly selective. They had acted like specialists, like connoisseurs of genius. They ignored the rest, and targeted only the most advanced, most valuable, most revolutionary machines. They didn't just steal objects, they stole the crown jewels of 19th century technology. They stole the machines that could think. The motive, it seemed, was not just money. It was something more. Someone out there didn't just want to own Robert-Houdin's creations. They wanted to own his secrets. The trail has gone cold. Decades have passed since the disappearance of Robert-Houdin's mechanical marvels. The paper trail vanishes, the witnesses are gone, and all that remains is a profound and unsettling silence. When evidence disappears, speculation is all that is left. Investigators, historians, and enthusiasts have been haunted by this mystery for over a century, and their search for answers has led them down 4 distinct and compelling paths. 4 theories, each one painting a different fate for the world's first androids. The first and most romantic theory is that of the secret collector. Imagine a man of immense wealth, a billionaire of the 19th century, hidden from the public eye. He isn't interested in paintings or sculptures like other collectors. He craves the unique, the impossible, the one-of-a-kind. He learns of Robert-Houdin's automata and becomes obsessed. This collector doesn't just want a piece of art, he wants to own a piece of the future. He orchestrates a quiet, professional theft, not for the value of the metal, but for the thrill of possessing something no one else can ever see. In this version of the story, the automata are not lost or destroyed. They are safe. They are preserved in perfect condition in a climate-controlled, secret vault somewhere in a Swiss mansion or a remote castle. And every now and then, their mysterious owner locks the door, winds the key, and watches with satisfaction as a mechanical boy writes him a secret letter, a private performance for an audience of 1. The second theory is far more sinister: stolen for secrets. In the 19th century, the race for technological superiority was just as fierce as it is today. Robert-Houdin's automata were not just magic tricks, they were the most advanced robotics on the planet. This theory suggests that the disappearance was not a simple theft, but an act of industrial espionage. Perhaps it was a rival inventor, desperate to understand and copy Robert-Houdin's genius. Or perhaps it was even a foreign government, wanting to seize this advanced technology for its own purposes. In this scenario, the automata were smuggled out of France and taken to a secret workshop. There, they were not preserved, but ruthlessly dissected. Their bodies were opened, their clockwork hearts pulled apart gear by gear, their secrets studied and reverse-engineered. The magic was sacrificed for information. They were destroyed not out of malice, but out of a cold, calculated hunger for knowledge and power. The third theory is less dramatic, but perhaps the most tragic: the family's mistake. There was no grand conspiracy, no shadowy collector. There was only a family, grieving the loss of their patriarch and overwhelmed by the responsibility of his enormous legacy. Robert-Houdin's machines were incredibly complex and delicate. They required constant, expert maintenance. It's possible that his family, unable to care for them and perhaps facing financial pressures, simply began to sell the collection off, piece by piece, over many years. They may not have fully understood their immense historical value. A priceless automaton, like the writer, might have been sold for the price of a fancy music box to a traveling merchant or a curious nobleman, its true importance lost to time. In this theory, the collection wasn't stolen in a single event. It just slowly and quietly dissolved into history, scattered across the Wabua. Old and lost forever, due to simple human error. Finally, there is the fourth and most heartbreaking possibility. They were simply destroyed. This is the theory with no villain and no mystery, only loss. The automata, packed away in crates, could have been stored in a warehouse that later burned down. They could have been damaged during one of the many moves and, being deemed too difficult to repair, were simply discarded, thrown away, or sold for scrap metal. The genius, the art, the thousands of hours of work, all melted down for the simple value of their brass and steel. It's a sad thought that a machine that could once write poetry might have ended its existence as a broken hinge on a forgotten door. The story ends not with a secret, but with a quiet, unnoticed disposal. So which is it? A hidden treasure, preserved in a private collection, a stolen secret, taken apart for its knowledge, a treasured heirloom, tragically sold by mistake, or a forgotten relic, lost to a fire or a scrap heap. Each path leads to a different ending for these incredible machines, but none leads to a definitive answer. The trail is cold, and the truth remains locked away in the past, leaving us with only speculation. So we are left where we began, in the quiet of a workshop, surrounded by the ghosts of genius. The story of Jean-Eugène Robert-Houdin is the story of a man who saw the future, a future powered not by electricity or silicon, but by the patient, intricate dance of clockwork. He was a pioneer on a path that history chose not to follow. We are left to wonder what our world might look like if his vision had become our reality. But more than that, we are left with the profound, aching silence where his greatest achievements should be. We are left with empty museum cases, with historical records that lead to a dead end, and with a mystery that has only deepened with time. The creator is gone, but the fate of his most incredible creations remains a puzzle with no solution. They have outlived their master, but their story feels unfinished, their final chapter unwritten. To find an ending, we must choose from one of the 4 paths that history has left for us. 4 different fates, 4 different stories, each with its own truth. Which path do you believe leads to the lost androids? Do you believe in the romantic story of the secret collector? A tale where genius is not lost, but simply hidden. A story where the automata are still in pristine condition, preserved in a secret climate-controlled vault, performing their miracles for a single, obsessive billionaire who values possessing a secret more than sharing it with the world. Is it a story of preservation, or one of ultimate selfishness? Or perhaps you are drawn to the darker path, the story of stolen for secrets. This is a tale of ambition and espionage. Here, the automata were seen not as art, but as weapons in a technological war. They were stolen by a jealous rival or a foreign power, ruthlessly dismantled in a secret laboratory, their mechanical souls dissected piece by piece to unlock the secrets of their creation. A story where the magic was murdered by the cold, hard ambition of men who wanted to own the future, not just witness it. Maybe the truth is simpler and sadder. Do you believe the story of the family's mistake? A quiet tragedy with no villain. No conspiracy, no grand theft, just the slow, creeping erosion of time and human error. A family, overwhelmed by their inheritance, who perhaps sold off priceless treasures for a fraction of their worth, not knowing they were letting history itself slip through their fingers. A story where the automata weren't stolen, but simply dissolved into the world, scattered and lost forever. Or is the truth the most brutal and final of all? The story of they were simply destroyed. No mystery, no plot, just the random cruelty of fate. A fire in a forgotten warehouse, a flood in a damp basement, or the simple unceremonious fate of being sold for scrap metal. A reminder that even the most profound works of genius are fragile and can be erased from existence in a single, careless moment, leaving nothing behind but dust and regret. A hidden treasure, a stolen secret, a tragic mistake, or a forgotten piece of trash. Each theory is its own mystery. What we choose to believe about the fate of these machines says a lot about what we believe about history itself. Is it a grand story of secrets and conspiracies, or a simpler, sadder tale of things just being lost to time? So now, the case is yours. The trail has ended, and I turn this century-old cold case over to you. I want you to go down to the comments section right now and become part of this investigation. Don't just write one theory. Tell me why you believe it. If it was a collector, what kind of person were they? If it was a rival, who do you suspect? Build your own narrative. Read what other people are saying. Debate the theories. Do you agree? Disagree? Let's turn the comment section into a detective's workshop. Let's see if 1,000 minds can shed some light where history has left only darkness.